The Indian Recreation Club Challenge Cup is our feature at Happy Valley on Wednesday night. Welcome to Racing to Win. We've got a big 8-race card set for decision at the Valley, and it's going to be an interesting night, John. As I say, welcome to you and to Paul, because we haven't been to the Valley now for a couple of weeks. It's been a fortnight away.
No, back in the old routine, looking forward to it, and it's always nice to get back up there on the 8th floor and call some dramatic finishes. I'm sure there'll be a few. Yeah,
there's generally one or two of those on the card, Paul. Always competitive racing. A handful of first starters again.
Yeah, only 3 this time. So there are those 3 horses that'll be racing for the first time. A lot of here in Hong Kong, I should say. Some of them have raced overseas, but a lot of even races, as you mentioned, Brett. There's no real odds-on standouts, I think, throughout the card. So should be some good betting opportunities.
I think so. There's a couple of nice horses making their debut. Lucky Hero in the last, obviously, trying Happy Valley for the first time. I think looks an interesting character. But let's go back and reflect on what was a fabulous weekend of racing at Sha Tin with the Chairman's Trophy and the Sprint Cup, both at Group 2 level. They could have easily been Group 1s. And let's get to Edward Sadler's review on the program.
Sunday's meeting at Sha Tin served as the important lead-up towards Champions Day in 3 weeks' time. John Size has been the dominant force in the sprint events this season, and that trend continued on Sunday in the Sprint Cup. This time with Beat the Clock landing his biggest career win.
Beat the Clock, Mr. Stunning, winner's way not far away. Beat the Clock, headed Mr. Stunning. Beat the Clock from Mr. Stunning in the Sprint Cup.
He's done well. He's always promised to do that, and today he's delivered. He's only 4-year-old. He's younger than the other ones, so he's done a good job. Next season he's probably got a little bit of improvement in him.
Beat the Clock's visually impressive performance was also reflected in his closing sectionals, as he clocked a blistering 21.03 seconds for his final 400 metres, the fastest time for this section in a 1,200 metre turf race at Sha Tin for the last decade. He will now spearhead a 5-strong attack on the Chairman's Sprint Prize for Size's stable, which could also include iVictory and the Wizard of Oz. Hong Kong's QE2 Cup and Champions Mile aspirants clashed in the Chairman's Trophy, where 7-year-old Beauty Only capitalised on a fast pace to capture his first win since the 2016 Hong Kong Mile.
Beauty Only, Beauty Generation drive to the lead together. Western Express bursting through late. Beauty Only's got it narrowly from Western Express and wins it.
It was a significant moment for Neil Callan and proved justification for his faith in Beauty Only, after he had talked Tony Cruz out of potentially retiring the horse earlier in the season.
When I got to the corner, he was still full in my hands, and I just knew when I pulled him out that he was just going to pass them all. So, you know, fair play to them for keeping him in training, and fair play to them for giving me a chance back on him.
It wasn't all good news for Tony Cruz, though. Enigmatic galloper Pakistan Star was up to his old tricks, as he wanted to stop at certain stages of the race, and the stewards ruled that he must trial once more over 1,600 metres before he is allowed to compete again. Meanwhile, race favourite Time Warp finished last, with Zach Purton struggling to come up with excuses for the performance, while Cruz attributed the run to Time Warp not being as effective over 1,600 metres as he is over longer distances. It all sets up a fascinating build-up for Hong Kong's inaugural Champions Day meeting, and the fields for all 3 Group 1 events will be announced this Wednesday, prior to the big day itself on April 29.
Yeah, that's right. $69 million in prize money coming up for grabs on a Champions Day on the 29th of April. What did we learn from the weekend, fellas?
Beat the Clock's very good, probably even better than we thought he was. I mean, obviously he was getting that weight concession, but he's run 3 absolutely top-class 1,200 metres now this season, and he's obviously kind of been going between 12 and 1,400. I think they'll stick to the 12 now. Absolutely,
and Mr. Stunning was certainly not disgraced, Paul. But going back to Time Warp, clearly now the mile obviously not suitable. He needs the longer trip to get into rhythm.
Yeah, they weren't really winning from the front either on the day. A lot of the sweepers were getting into the race. So I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, their big grand final is at the end of this month, isn't it? And the QE2. So, look, this was a nice sort of pipe opener. They probably wanted him to finish off a little bit better. But wasn't to be. He was taken on.
It was a very fast run over the mile. They got very close to a good Barbar's track record, which had stood for 10 years. Of course, he won 3 Hong Kong Miles. He was a fairly decent horse if you go back and have a look at his replays. Interesting, Pingwu Spark got 8 up to 119 now. Solar Patch, first starter for the John Moore camp, very impressive. Picked up 5 points. Roundabout, Ho Ho Field, Crown Avenue. Super Rich, obviously quite an impression from him on debut. Picked up 10 points, Paul. You were suggesting would run well.
Yeah, both those first starters ran well, didn't they? They were the Quinella on the race, but Super Rich was far too good for them.
He was. There were no suspensions either from the last 2 meetings at Sha Tin. All right, let's have a look and see if we can find a horse to follow from the program on Sunday. There were quite a few rough results, so hopefully a little bit of value to be found from the meeting, Paul, going forward. What have you noticed?
I went for one of the first starters in that first race. Super Rich does win the race quite impressively, and he runs away with it. But Sunshine Holiday needs further. This was 1,000 metres. He'd been trialling pretty well. He's in the far side of the track there, as you can see in the red and white colours. Once he steps up over 12, 1,400, even up to a mile, I think he's definitely a horse to follow. He is a son of Fastnet Rock, and I thought he hit the line very strongly. Neil Cullen aboard, so he's one definitely to keep the eye on, I think, coming up.
All right, John, you're up next.
Yeah, I've gone with one with a little bit more Hong Kong experience. Not a huge amount, though, and he's still very much at the developmental stage of his career here, Faithful Trinity. But I thought he ran very well at Happy Valley 2 starts ago. He then followed up with this the other day at Sha Tin. He was a little bit unlucky in the latter stages too. 1,800 metres, the first time he tackled that trip here at Sha Tin. He's bred to stay even further. Actually, he won a 2-year-old race in Germany over 1,600, so he's got plenty of stamina in his pedigree as well. And I thought he was a little bit unlucky, and in the end, when he finally got a gap here, he hit the line pretty well. So you probably have to keep him on side for races 1,800 plus, but I think he's handicapped well enough to possibly win one soon.
Yeah, I thought for a moment there he was going to be right in the finish, actually. I'm going to go with a horse that we know a little bit about, Intrepic, from the David Hall yard. He hadn't done a great deal at all this prep, but I keep remembering that victory last season that was quite a polished performance against some nice enough horses. He was on a rating of 62 going into the meeting on Sunday, very close to a drop in class, but that'll be put on hold now with this good performance, finishing second behind Solar Patch, who was quite a powerful winner on debut. Of course, Lean Perfection was unbeaten going into the race as well. So it's quite a solid form reference. Best I've seen from Intrepic for a while. With that underneath his belt now, I think you can go into him with a bit of confidence heading forward. There was no suspensions from either the meeting on Sunday or the meeting previously on Sunday, so we'll push straight on to all the scratchings for Happy Valley. And you need to sharpen your pencil because there's quite a few of them. In the first, we scratched Star Superior, and the newcomer Glorium will gain a start for Neil Cullen, who takes the ride. We move to the third. 4 Sharp Mind is out, replaced by Applause. Matthew Poon in good form of late. He'll be aboard there. He'll be aboard I'm a Witness in race 4, who replaces 5 Multi Go-Go, the last start winner. Race 5, number 3, Telecom Brothers is scratched and replaced by Big Fortune, who'll carry Saddlecloth 3 for Umberto Rispoli. And then on to race 6, number 2, Sleep Education out, Lucky Girl in. Tommy Berry will take the ride. So quite a few adjustments to the card. We're up to date now, 62nd meeting of 88 here in Hong Kong, and we're on the A course back at the Valley. And we kick off with Class 4 company. Now, Good Companion, Young Empire, both getting the drop in grade. Glorium will jump from barrier number 2. He's had a lot of tendon issues, this horse. Love Chunghwa, Dr. Race, Good For You. We go down to Oriental Elite for Joe Moreira. Blinker's back on the Happy Bunch. Starlet's back in Trip. Lightning Missile. Auto Pay hasn't had a lot of racing this season. And Let's Go Free down the bottom. How do they set up early, John? Yeah,
well, Good Companion and Young Empire are both fairly regular front runners drawn wide. You'd have thought they'd be wanting to get across as quick as they possibly can. The Happy Bunch is mapped to go forward this time round. Blinker's back on for him. And then Love Chunghwa just lurking in behind there with Starlet, who's back at the sprint trip again.
One of the horses that will be on the pace is the Young Empire, which is the racing club horse. You can see him here, Jack Wong, doing the work, and he'll take that 5 pounds off this horse as well. So he's drawn 10, so he's just going to have to work a little bit to get across, but he is downgraded. This horse is going well. Dr. Race, Karis Teaton aboard, just a 400-metre piece of workout for him, but he's doing it nicely, and he'll definitely get the race run to suit. There's no question about him, because he does like to come with a little bit of a finish with this pace on. And here is the this horse, the Happy Bunch. I thought it was, he's moving really nicely here. Tommy Berry's aboard, does know the horse quite well now, and the blinkers on will definitely help him. And there's definitely something there with this horse.
Yeah, you've had a little bit of loyalty for the Happy Bunch. Were you a Brady Bunch man, Paul?
Brady Bunch, yeah, a big fan of the Brady Bunch. The reruns, of course. What
about you, John? Were you a Brady Bunch?
Well before my time, Brett, as I'm sure you're aware.
Don't lie. Let's move on to a couple that are dropping in grade now. Of course, the Racing Club will be out in force with Young Empire, whose last win was off 61. It was his first start this season, and it was in Class 3. So can you overlook the poor form in the racebook at the moment? That's the question.
Well, that's the $64,000 question when assessing this horse's chance, and a question of whether he can get across as well. He is, as you say, nicely rated, and with Jack Wong taking those £5 off as well, it'll come in handy. Just a question of whether he can get across and get a good run.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a chance. I've got him in the numbers. He going to have to work a little bit early. And look, with the he's won off 61. He did win fresh up this season. So.
Yep. He's drawn 10 and Good Companion's drawn 12, and he's a similar type, actually. His last win was off 62, and it was back on the 11th of October last year. He also won off 57 back in September, right at the start of the season. But like Young Empire, when you look at the racebook, the form looks appalling.
Yeah, it does. It's yeah, he's run last in his last 4 starts. Cheek pieces come off, and from barrier 12, he's going to have to work. So I prefer the ones inside him than him. Yeah,
in fairness to Good Companion, prior to this bad run of form, he was very consistent, but he seems to have lost that at the moment. But maybe the drop in grade will do the trick.
It doesn't look to be an overly strong race. I mean, we're going to concentrate on horses now like Oriental Elite, the Happy Bunch, who have both just had a handful of starts and haven't really done a great deal. Starlet is coming back in trip from a run over the longer distance.
Yeah, Starlet has put in 1 or 2 decent performances at Happy Valley at 1200. Of the 3, the Oriental Elite, he's never drawn a gate yet, and he still hasn't on Wednesday night either. But he's just improving nicely, and a certain Jay Moreira has decided he's going to jump on, so that's a bit of a tip in itself.
You
really.
can see the Happy Bunch was worried out of that gap as well, so the blinkers back on him will really help.
Lightning Missile, I'm probably going to side with this guy. I thought final stages here, you'll see he's just sort of held up for a clear run, vital stages. He was trialling well leading into this, hadn't raced since late October, but there was a little bit of monetary support to suggest he'd go well. Just here, he looks like he's going to get into the race.
Yeah, he's still a maiden here at this stage, but that's probably one of his better runs. I've got him in on a minor line.
I thought he'd start better than he did that time, because I'd seen him trial at Happy Valley and get out much better, so I was a bit disappointed with his start, but he stayed on well, so I've got him in there as well.
Yeah, I think if he steps well, he might be going very close for me, but what did you end up with on top, Paul?
Well, Dr. Race, I think the race will be really run to suit, and he's very well rated at the moment, Dr. Race. He's won off 53, he's now down to a rating of 52 from barrier 5. He'll sit behind this fast pace, and I think he can finish off over the top. The Happy Bunch, will give him another chance there with the blinkers going back on, because he has been a little bit unlucky, and he'll be a bit of value in the race. Young Empire from the front, if he can get across easy enough, you think he'll be there. And the Lightning Missile, I've got him in there for 4th, get back and run on. But I've got Dr. Race, I think he'll win the race, so number 5 at Dr. Race. The Happy Bunch, the Brady Bunch you're talking about, you wouldn't want their food ball, would you?
Right. John, anything to add to that?
Nothing really, unfortunately. Lightning Missile, though, is the one I'm going to go for on top here. Like I said before, he's got to start a little bit better, and he hasn't got the greatest draw of all time, but it's not a bad one either. And I just think there's a little bit of upside to him, and he was a bit unfortunate in that race that we showed. Dr. Race, he came to some pretty good form around about this time of the year last year as well, and he ran well last time, and he gets a good draw, get a nice drag into the race. Oriental Elite has drawn gate 10 on all 3 of his starts so far. Gate 8's not a huge amount better, but he's clearly just improving nicely. And Love Chung Wah probably should have done better this season than he has, but he's drawn well, and again, the faster they go out in front, the more he gets into the race. QQP 5 and 10 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little chance with Lightning Missile. I think he might run OK. I've had time to process that too, Paul, and I know where you're coming from. We're going to take a break here on Racing to Win. Back with more after this.